on mute. This is my favourite part, to see everyone's smiling faces. I can see Sophia. Hello, Claudine. I encourage you all to turn on your videos so we can see your face. I can't see Kim. I can see Claudine. Heather, hello. Everyone staying warm on this cold winter's day. Okay. Hey, Kim, nice to see you. All right, well, we'll get started, and a couple of people are still to join us. For those of you that are new, welcome. Hey, Romy, good to see you. This session is about bringing fabulous people together, women and some men, talking about women's empowerment topics so we can all learn and share together, and most importantly, putting a spring in your step for a great Friday. I want to start by acknowledging that most of us meet on the traditional owners of the Kaurna people, and we respect their heritage and connection with the land, and past, present and future emerging leaders. There are some of you that are in different parts of Australia, so I acknowledge that as well, but I wanted to just pay my respects up front. We've got two fabulous speakers, Trisha Karp and Alison Nicola. Just give us a wave, Trisha and Alison. And my co-host with the most, Anjani Amrit. Give us a wave, Anjani. Nice to see you. So the format for this morning is I'm going to get Alison and Trisha to introduce themselves. Then they're going to go and share an insight with you for 3 minutes. And of course, Anjani will share some reflections as well. And then we'll open up for Q&A. So please think of your questions. You can type them in the chat, and then we will go through those questions after the leader's insight. So get pens poised. You want to take some notes and be open and vulnerable. Hi, Kirsty. Nice to see you this morning. So I'm just going to start with now, Trisha, you're a teacher, mentor, author, 3 books, a new book imminent or just launched, former TV presenter, journalist. The list goes on. So could you just share a little bit of an insight into who is Trisha?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Natasha. So I help women to own and stand in their power at work and in every part of their lives. And a lot of my focus is on supporting women to really abandon the stories that they've been told and sold about who and how they should be in this world. We carry around so much conditioning around that we're often not aware of, and we're not often aware of the impact that that's having on our lives and how we are at work as well. So I'm really about helping them to reclaim and embody their power. And yeah, I've worked with lots of powerful women over 10 years now, politicians, founders of global movements, Olympic athletes, CEOs, small business owners, all sorts of wonderful women. And as you said, I'm the author of 3 books, and my latest book came out on Monday. It's called A Woman's Path to Power. I had to remember what it's called for a moment: Healing Self-Abandonment and Betrayal. And that's a #1 bestseller, so that has been really exciting this week.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trisha. And we met in Adelaide some time ago, but now you and Anjani are both in Byron Bay, so it's a small world.
It is.
Now, Alison, you are a real go-getter, founder of Care App, award winner of numerous awards in the entrepreneurial space. So just share a little bit more about who is Alison Nicola for us.
Thanks, Natasha. Lovely to see all of these faces, some familiar faces, some new faces, and some that I totally fangirl on. So it's actually really cool, you know. So who's Alison? I'm a mother, I'm a partner, I'm a daughter, I am a friend, I'm a colleague. And I say all of those things because it has taken the tribe to support Me on my entrepreneurial journey. I would describe myself as an accidental entrepreneur, set out on a Friday night with a glass of wine. So just be careful what you do tonight when you have a glass of wine and you wonder, what if? And that what if moment turned me to having a coffee and investing $3.50 in a cappuccino with an old care worker of mine. And from there, I grew Care App from my kitchen bench and a glass of wine to being in every state and territory of Australia, 35,000 users and growing, and really owning the lane around care being a beautiful experience and providing families with a window into that. So Care App's been likened to aged care's answer to some of the parental childcare apps that you might be familiar with. So family members can stay connected with their loved ones when they receive care and support services.
Fabulous. A great business and a great purpose and a great contributor to society and community. So we look forward to hearing from you in just a moment. Now, let's jump straight into our 3-minute leaders insights, and then I'm going to hand over to Anthony to share some reflections. So Tricia, I'm going to hand over to you now, 3 minutes.
Okay, so I want to talk about passive behaviours and the ways that we behave passively at work, or just give some examples around that and the stories that we're telling ourselves. So for an example, if you are holding back about putting something out there, holding back around speaking up, not putting yourself out there in ways that would absolutely serve you, and you know that, not asking for what you want or need, worrying if you say something and you are judged for it. What if there's someone smarter in the room who thinks that you don't know what you're talking about? All those sort of things, those stories that come up in our heads that hold us back. And my insight around that, or my practical tip, is becoming really aware of those stories. What are they and how are they driving you? Because our conditioning, and it still comes out so often for so many of the women I work with, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of women around this. Somewhere it's like, oh, but what if I upset someone? It's like I need to please, I need to be good, I need to be quiet. And it runs really, really deep, and we're often not aware of how those behaviors are our default position. So it's about identifying what is that passive behavior, because we're talking about leadership here. We're talking about being women who stand up, who do speak up, who put ourselves out there, who lead the way, who give power to others, not power over, but who are giving power to others. So what are those passive behaviors that are happening that are holding you back? And then what's the story that's behind them? What's that story you're living by? Is it, I shouldn't? I'll use the speak up in a meeting, for example. I shouldn't speak up in a meeting because what if I say something stupid, or what will people think if I put this idea out there, right? Really basic example. And then shifting that into a news story. What is the news story that you can create? Something like, it's my responsibility to contribute my expertise because I care about making a difference and I'm willing to put myself out there for that. And then that next step is, how do you live that story? Like, how do you actually live it? People often say to me, I have clients and they'll say, I want to be confident. I want to come across as confidence. And I'll say, well, if I'm putting a camera on you and I'm looking through the lens of that camera, what am I seeing that makes me perceive you as confident? What are the behaviors that a confident person has? And then how do you align with that? If you want to be confident, what does it look like? And what are the behaviors that will align with that story? We really do have the power to create our own stories and to shift from what has held us back into a new story. But the mindset of that isn't enough. It's like, what are the behaviors that you are going to take so that you are not in that passive place and you can really stand in the power of who you are and what you're here to offer? Is that 3 minutes? I might have been too quick.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you were under 3 minutes, but that is fine, Tricia. There were some powerful messages there. So It's not a test about the time. It's really about, I'll say quality, not quantity.
Yes, straight to
and
the
that was
point.
beautiful. Thank you. Thanks very much. Alison Nicola.
Okay, so when I was asked this question, how do you go from passive to power? I thought, okay, so what enabled me to go from having a glass of wine and instead of stopping in that moment to actually taking those steps? So for me, I think there's 4 key things that have really been the foundation of that journey of, instead of stopping in that moment, enjoying the glass of wine and going, okay, that's kind of cool, to where we are now. So the first is purpose. And I think we all need a strong sense of purpose in order to have kind of air in our tires and move forward. What is it that's driving us? What is motivating us to get out of bed on a Monday morning? Like here in Adelaide, it's a bit drizzly and a bit cold. Today's not Monday, it's Friday. But anyway, get out of bed and be able to make those steps forward. So for me, it was pretty strong. Like I was driven by solving a problem that my family was experiencing. So I had a very strong connection to the purpose. I was also lucky enough that I had experience in aged care and I had 440 care workers. So I was able to draw on that experience. But in those moments when it got really hard, I was able to, take a deep breath, reconnect with my purpose and help me move forward. So that was the first thing. The second thing is persistence. So we're going to come up against so many hurdles, and not only are we going to come up against professional hurdles, we're going to come up against naysayers. My God, the amount of people that told me that Carrot was going to amount to nothing. I needed $1 million to make it happen. You name it, I was told that it couldn't be done. We have other challenges that we face. I mentioned that, I'm a mother and a partner as well. This morning, I've just done 2 hours of Uber driving, right? To get kids to hockey and to school and all the rest of it. So persistence is a really key thing. Now, how did I go, okay, well, I want to build, something pretty game-changing here. But that seemed quite insurmountable. But what I did was I broke it down and asked myself, what am I going to do over the next 24 hours to move myself closer, right? Like 24 hours is not a lot, right? But we have a lot of those in a year, and quite a number of those in a month and 7 of them in a week, right? So if you add up all of those 24 hours and you think, okay, what am I going to do over the next 24 hours to move forward, make those steps, you'll find they add up very, very quickly. And when you reflect back on that month, when you reflect back on that 90 days, when you reflect back on the year, you'll be surprised about what you've been able to accomplish. And I know for me, that's very, very true. And some of my colleagues within the startup ecosystem feel exactly the same way. The third is one that I think, we struggle with at times, and Tricia spoke about it a little bit as well. But I talk about courage, actually having the courage to be able to do it. It takes a lot, right? Like we talk about persistence and having the naysayers and all the rest of it. When I gave my very first pitch, it was a disaster, an unmitigated, total disaster. And by disaster, I mean, I actually ran off the stage, physically removed myself from the stage, ran off and went back to the audience. That's how bad it was. Now, interestingly, fast forward a year later, I was invited to pitch in America, and I was standing on stage in front of over 500 qualified investors, pitching to America's largest angel capital summit. It was a competitive process, and I was one of the few international invited guests to that. And I had the courage to stand up on stage. Now, how did I get past the nerves on that? Was a mindset, exactly what Tricia spoke about. But what I started doing was, instead of going, oh my God, I am nervous. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. This is so scary. This is so scary. I'm like, oh, okay, Ali, that's really interesting. You're feeling a bit of adrenaline right now. That's a really interesting feeling. When else do you feel adrenaline? You feel adrenaline when you get excited. Maybe I'm actually excited. I've been invited to pitch here. This is a really exciting thing for me. I'm excited to tell my story. So gradually change the narrative in my mind from one of I'm really nervous to actually I'm really excited to be able to share what I've created, what I'm building, and our pathway forward. And the final thing that I think really supported me going from a position of passive to I wouldn't say power, but to where we are is community. And I think as women, we actually do this really well. But work together with your community, lean on your community, ask your community, and not just this sense of like, oh, I need help with particular things, but that really important emotional support that we need. Surround yourself with champions who are going to lift you up. I talk a lot about mentoring in this space, and sometimes I find that it's very easy for people to criticize, critique, but that doesn't benefit anyone. If you think about you're on a journey and you want to go somewhere, you need some air in your tires, right? You need air in your tires in your car to be able to move forward. As people, we need the same. So pump people up, look for your champions and supporters, and that will also enable you to, move forward to a place of, where you'd like to be, to achieve the goals that you would like to set out to achieve. So they're my 4 things: purpose, persistence. So a strong connection to purpose, persistence every 24 hours. What are you going to do to move forward? Courage, change that narrative in your head from like, oh my God, I can't do this, to actually, do you know what, I can. And finally, work with, lean on, and be an active part of your community.
Thank you, Alison. Fantastic. I love all the practical nature of your insights there. Anjani, over to you to share some reflections.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. I love all the sharing that's just been happening. So we heard from Tricia that it's important that we start to be aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves. And you gave some really great examples of what comes up a lot when we're at work, when we are in meetings as women, as leaders, in community, at work, and those passive behaviors where we hold back, we don't speak up, we think someone's better in the room than we are, we silence ourselves, all of those ways that we go passive. And your tip was around those conditioned but default behaviors, and that we have to identify them, start calling them out. What am I doing that I am holding myself in passivity? And what's the story behind them? Am I telling myself I shouldn't? And they're really good examples, Tricia. If we're saying to ourselves, I shouldn't, I mustn't, then we're holding ourselves back. So similarly, if we're saying I ought to, and I have to, and I must to, we're also holding ourselves back. So if you're saying that, if your inner narrative is that, Tricia gave some great examples, then we have to bring it to our awareness to identify that we're doing that, we're engaging in that passive behavior. Once we know it, once we understand it, then we can start to self-correct. And then Alison gave us the four cures for coming into your power, which I loved, which was purpose, stay connected to what you are passionate about, what's something that really is meaningful to you. You also spoke about persistence. What can I do in the next 24 hours? I love that, chunking things down, because we get overwhelmed. As women, we're very in touch with our emotions. So we've got that going on, as well as what I've got to do today. Men typically don't have that going on. So chunking it down, what one thing can I do today to get to where I want to go? Just one thing. Number 3, courage. Feeling your feelings. I've spoke about that so many times. Having courage to feel our feelings is a big one for women, especially if we've been in corporate for a long time. We tend to act like men and cut off and freeze our feelings, and we've got to start feeling our feelings, the F word, and changing the narrative, saying I can. And then lastly, community, leaning on it, asking for some emotional support. And I couldn't agree more. Putting air in your tires, definitely. And I want to say, for a lot of us, getting a community, and this is what the Power of Half Hours are about as well, is coming together in community. Because a lot of us as women, if we're running our own businesses, if we're doing our own thing, or if we're in a very male-dominated environment, we can get very lonely. We can be very lonely as the head of our families and our communities. And we don't have those ancient rituals that we used to have anymore to be in community. And that's where we thrive. So I couldn't agree more. So thank you so much, ladies. My insight how to move from passive to power as a woman and as a leader, I want to say that it all comes down to tapping back into our feminine power. The Indians call it Shakti. Okay, it's also known as Kundalini. It's an energetic activation. That's what changes everything. We've forgotten it. You know, we've had decades and decades of being disempowered through a patriarchal system. We've had decades of holding and giving birth to trauma through the birth line, through our bloodlines, trauma inherited down and down and down, the persecution, the banishment and destruction of our innate wisdom, being told that we're woo-woo if we're tuned into our intuition, you know, oh, that's woo-woo. And we bought into that story. So I'm here to say it's not woo-woo, it's our power. And men don't want us to have it. The world doesn't want us to have it. So the clever thing is for us to start to tap back into it. It's not religious, it's not woo-woo, it's the most natural aspect of who we are. That's where our power is. How do we do it? 4 things. Get in touch with our emotions. Get in touch with your breath. Get in touch with your inner wisdom. Trust it, lean on it, use it, speak from it, and get in touch with your heart. It will never lead you astray. Thank you. That's all I got to say on that.
Thank you, Anjani. Some powerful words there. Okay, we're going to go to questions, and Rami has asked one that you read my mind, Rami, because I was going to touch on your question, which I'm going to go to you, Tricia, first. So Rami says, from a mentoring perspective, what practical steps would you recommend an apprehensive person starts to do to get over fear? So can you just share, Tricia, start with, Anjali touched on some of them, but if you could just go another level into the tools we can use to change a narrative. They're, you know, are they easy just to do whilst walking down the street? What do we need to do?
Well, walking down the street, yeah, you can. I mean, you have to notice, first of all, what is that one going, what is that main story that's leading the way for you, that where that fear comes from and that apprehension. And whatever the story is, and let's keep it really simple, it's a I'm not good enough. Like, it always heads back to that place of I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, right? Which is a big pile of rubbish that we all tell ourselves deep down. So even if you can't identify the exact thing, it's always going to come back to that. And then it is about, you know, like Anjani said as well, it's really understanding and starting to connect with our feminine power. But in that moment, that's not a quick thing to do necessarily. So it's just identifying the I'm not good enough and changing the story, coming up with a new story that I am enough. I have something to offer. I have been asked to do this. So even if I can't see it right now for myself, someone else can see it with me. So I'm going to trust them. And when we create that story, we can start to feel that and embody it in our bodies. It's not just a head thing. I think that's really important to point out. This whole mindset thing, it's not enough just to say it in your head, right? You have to be able to embody it ultimately, but it starts with that story. And then the embodiment comes in, okay, well, if I am that, how am I behaving? And I think you can do that very quickly.
Thank you, Tricia. I'm going to come to Melissa's question in a minute for you, Alison, but Alison, you talked about that experience when you were on stage in the US, and you did manage self-talk with some breathing exercises, I imagine. So can you just share some more examples of how you practically raise that awareness? We've talked about awareness and change that narrative when you're in that difficult moment.
So, yeah, okay. That moment, so going into the US now, that was incredibly successful. So I've gone from running off stage to actually securing investment out of the US, right? Based on that pitch. I remember incredibly well. So incredibly nervous. And I'm like, okay, right, I'm feeling super, super nervous right now. I've actually physically, shaking. I can feel the adrenaline running through my system. And I literally start that self-talk in my head and recognize, okay, that's how I'm feeling right now. And I take myself on a journey. Oh, like, is that nervousness that I'm feeling? And all the way through to actually, oh my God, Ali, you've been invited to pitch here. This is super exciting. You are prepared. You are good for this. I didn't do as much breathing sort of exercise, but I think in hindsight, I probably should have. But probably the thing that works for me really well is music. So I actually listened to a series of, different kinds of, tracks leading into it. I took myself out of the environment. I actually went outside and I listened to some music. And as goofy as it is, I actually listened to The Greatest Showman, that song. And I was like, I am going to put on the best show you guys have ever seen, and just listen to it. And I really, got into the zone. Going back to, the putting air in people's tires and the mentoring and whatnot, and for the apprehensive person, tell them what they've done really well, or even reflect on what you've done really well. Have that feeling of success, or, oh my God, that was good. That positive affirmations, they're really great ways to go, actually, I am good at this bit, or I have been successful in that. And they're often transferable from there.
Thank you, Ali. I was going to sing The Greatest Showman for you all, but trust me, you don't want me to sing. I'm going to come back to Melissa's question, but Anjani, can we just talk about breathing for a minute? Because you and I talk about it as a practical tool. Can you just actually share a practical breathing tool and why it's important?
Yes, I would say for all of us, some belly breathing is really important, because often we're up in our head and we're doing our day up in our head. And what happens is all of our energy gets stuck up here and we're not actually in our bodies. And Trisha talked about we have to embody our power. So a simple practice that we can do to reconnect with our feminine power is get back in our bodies. How do we do that? Soften the belly. And as you breathe in, just allow and invite the outward breath to drop into the belly. So you can just do it at the moment if you want. Just place your hand on your belly and soften the belly, because we all tend to scrunch our belly. We want the flat belly. So just soften the belly, have a Buddha belly. Breathing in either through the nostrils or the mouth if your nostrils are blocked. And as you breathe out, invite the outward breath to drop into the belly. You might feel resistance, don't force it, but just allow it. It might take a few breaths. Okay, so just let it drop down into the belly. And when you start feeling it dropping into the belly, what you're doing is automatically switching from fight and flight up here into rest and digest. And then you're in your power. That's one way to easily and quickly tap into your power. Then you're back in your body. Then you can make way better decisions, connect to your intuition.
Thank you. I've just conscious of time. Alison, you talked about the 24 hours breaking down your plan and your progress into 24-hour increments. Melissa asked a great question. How do you define useful actions over just being busy?
Yeah.
I want to be busy.
Yeah, great question. I'm like a massive anti-to-do list kind of person. They don't work for me at all. And by success over 24 hours, I don't necessarily always mean success of I'm going to achieve a goal for the business, right? Like this, it could be something for myself or something that is going to put me in a position that I feel comfortable and confident in, where I am and whatever. So today, for me, I would like to get to, I've got one thing that I would like to achieve, and I've got a big ass document that I need to get through, and I'm quarantining some time off to get through that document. And I know that I will get to my child's football match and I'll feel really good about being able to achieve that. And so it's literally just choose, one thing that I can achieve, you know, in that day. The other little goal that I've set for myself today is I actually want to be in bed, lights off by 10 o'clock. Now check in with me whether I actually achieve that, but I know that I've got another early start tomorrow and another early start on Sunday, and then I roll into another busy week. So I've set myself a goal of, okay, I'm going to get myself into bed by 10 o'clock. And I know good sleep is actually key for setting myself up for success. So they're the two things that
Alison, sorry, I'm just going to thank you for that. Those two things are absolute. Melissa, in bed by 10 o'clock. I think that's a great tip for you. Tricia, just one final insight from you, and then we're going to wrap up. And 9:30 is our hard finish, and then I'll get Anjani. I'll hand over to you straight after Anjani to say cheerio. One
final insight from me. Are you asking for? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, just connecting in with getting, like Anjani said as well, so important, getting out of our heads. You can start there with your head, with your story, but come into your body and embody where you want to be and start behaving from that place. Makes a huge difference.
Thank you, Tricia. Anjani, over to you to wrap up.
Thank you. So I've had some great insights today. We're leading more and more into how we can become embodied as women in our power. It's very important that we do that. If you have any further questions, you can contact Natasha or I. Trisha's got lots of stuff in her new book. Alison, thank you so much for your very practical insights. I love everything that you just naturally do. It's all great. So thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up every month. We'll be doing another one next month. We do have a live event coming in October in Adelaide, so watch out for that. And if you have any suggestions that you want for either Natasha and I to bring as a speaking topic to these Power Half Hours, then please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Tricia, put your details of your book in the chat.
Okay.
Everyone can have a look. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day. I hope you've all done the poll.
Thank you very much, ladies. Have a beautiful day. Have a great day. Stay in your bodies.
Take care, everyone.
See ya.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah, Melissa, we'll send out Trisha's book details.
I'm putting it on here, but yeah.
It'll come out in the email as well that goes out to everyone, so you will get them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's just see. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tricia.
Oh, well, Alison's gone. Yes, she has. Thank you, Tricia. Nice to catch up with you. Albeit brief.
Thanks.
Are you coming back to Adelaide anytime soon?
Oh, I haven't got any plans at the moment, but I'm sure I will be.
Look us up.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tricia. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
You too.